Hello and welcome to this special interview for The Wire with an actress who's left an indelible mark with her work on Indian cinema and especially art cinema. Her movies have garnered critical acclaim and she is loved by millions of fans in India and abroad. Today, we speak to Deepti Naval for a book, A Country Called Childhood. Welcome, ma'am, to this special interview.
Thank you, Valay. Thanks.
Ma'am, I would like to start by asking you, people write about social issues, people write about their own, say, experiences, they turn into fiction. What was in your mind when you decided that you want to revisit your childhood years and also a particular window? Not like, I think you cover about 19 years of your life.
The first 19
And
years.
so I think I just want to start with what inspired you.
I think my leaving India and going to America gave me the opportunity to look back at the life I'd left. It gave me a different perspective, and I found that the more I thought about my childhood, the more fascinating I found it to be. In little small ways, but very fascinating. And I thought, wow, what an ambience to grow up in. I just from a very long time ago, I thought I will write about my childhood one day. So I think that perspective, maybe if I had stayed on there, may not have changed, and I may not have been able to look at it as a period of my life which was fascinating.
So in a sense, the distance that was created by the family moving
to the
to
US.
New York, to US, that from then itself you'd been thinking about this time and this period of your life.
I think when I entered my late 30s.
Right.
When I entered my late 30s, I thought I'll write about it. Yeah. The looking back had started even when I landed in America.
Yeah, in fact,
looking back had started.
In fact, in the book, you mentioned that you were kind of looking at yourself even from a very early age, like that.
Yeah.
You're doing something
Yes.
and you're also detachedly looking at you from outside.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that ability to self-reflect, let's say.
Yes, I've said that in one of the episodes where I'm with my mom, and she's distributing milk to little children, in the neighborhood. And I do remember standing there, looking at top of the staircase, looking at this little boy, this 2.5-year-old boy. I'm like 4 maybe myself, and I recall having another, like a bird's eye view of me standing there and looking at him. Not just the memory of him, but me there in the foreground and him down there in the background. And I'm looking at this whole thing, Mama's, holding on to Mama's sari. And so that, yeah, I do.
And I remember there are multiple such instances
Right.
where you're saying that what your parents did, especially your mother, the empathy that she kind of imparted or let's say gave to you.
Yes, the way she felt about things. Yeah. She had this way of looking at life and feeling for people, or what she saw, And I think that also it's like also my training as an actor. I step into the other person's shoes and then live the emotion that the person is going through. So that, I think it started somewhere.
Yeah.
Bachpan se.
And the bachpan was quite, in large portion of the book, it comes across as a lot of fun.
Yes.
A lot of fun, which
Yeah.
I wonder if today's children can actually, are living that close to life. Because
Yeah.
one is so detached, one is very individualistic, and you've grown up in that old Amritsar,
Yeah.
where everybody is well, like tightly knit.
Yes.
And so I was wondering, ma'am, when you moved to America, is that what the community feeling? What was that most important thing that you missed? Your friendships, your community, or I mean,
No, not in America. You know, when I was there, I think I just was consumed, got consumed by, you know, my life in Manhattan, going to college and, you know, walking the streets and learning photography and American theater. And, you know, that was a new life. It was, I didn't immediately, I just looked back and I said, wow, that was quite something, what we left behind. But I was just so consumed by my life in the US that it was not the time to miss, yeah, recall with a lot of, you know, affection and nostalgia, but not really missing till in my later years. In my later years, I started to get that feeling, you know, that I'm missing, I miss that. Yeah, that happened much later.
and so I mean, although you leave that part out about your college in America,
How? No, the
Huh.
book finishes.
The book finish,
As
yeah.
teenage finishes, book finishes.
yeah, but it really leaves you wanting more, that part, because your whole gaze throughout the time you were here,
Yeah.
and one would have loved to read. Of course, maybe that's another book.
That should be another book, because when I write about my experiences in the film industry, I think it will keep going back to the US phase. Yeah, it will keep going back to that and then connecting, because I connect that, you know, that part of me spending those years in New York City to coming from there to here to Bombay film industry. So I think that would be the next.
Next,
Yeah.
ma'am, you're a painter. You've traveled so much, and I think you take great photos also, I've been told.
Yeah, I'm fond of.
So- How does it, I mean, just to understand, like, you know, acting is such a consuming profession. How were you able to even take time out? Because you must have had to leave other things and sacrifice to pursue these other passions that you have.
Yeah, but I would say, I wasn't working that much. I didn't make that many movies like, you know, my colleagues probably, where I did 100 films, they must have done like 250 films or even 300, Anupam Kher and all the, you know, these people. I didn't work, I was a bit picky. Not that I didn't do my share of bad, unmentionable films, because they were just so insipid, it didn't really matter. But, you know, one kept working, but not so much that I didn't have time to take off, you know, go trekking or you know, spend time writing and reflecting. I had a lot of time. I did have that time because I was very choosy with my roles, and thankfully that I didn't get consumed by the film industry. I mean, thankfully, because it left me with my other aspects.
Which are probably more fulfilling
Yes.
than just
Yes,
doing.
am I so glad? Am I so glad that I wasn't consumed by the industry? My talent was not fully, like, you know, क्या कहते हैं, realized that I had so much more to say.
But that's interesting because in the book you have this chapter called Filmomania.
Filmomania.
And there are other parts also where you've talked about the various mainstream movies. You write that you're basically your childhood influences were mainstream movies.
Yes, totally.
And then we find that as an actor, you kind of shunning them totally, in a
Yeah,
sense. And that's very interesting.
Yeah, because I think if New York hadn't happened in between, and if I had come straight from Amritsar to Bombay, I would have been a completely different kind of an actor. I don't think it would have been the same. you know. It's all these other actors that I got to watch very carefully in the US. Some films that I got to see, that my ideas of acting changed a little bit.
No, I mean, and thank
Yeah.
God for that.
Yeah,
For
thank God.
thank God for us, the Indian viewer.
Yeah,
who's
because
wa-
no, but one thing I was very sure about is that when I join films, I'm not going to be swinging in front of the camera. I mean it in a larger term, not in any derogatory way. I mean, I admire all the dancers we've had, including Vijanti Mala and Asha Parekh. So my ideas of good cinema, I think, changed. Though I had, my fill of films like what was that, Jagte Raho, and I mean, I thought those were amazing films. Not Pyasa, I think Bandini or Nutan's, a couple of Nutan's films, and I think I did see a couple of Bimal Roy films.
And of course,
You
some
know, on the
fame.
old movies when they would, you come and we would skip classes and go and see
Yes,
films. So definitely, I had seen that part, that cinema, where I really, when I came back, I wanted to belong there. That's where I wanted to belong. I wanted to belong to the period of Guru Dutt and Bimal Roy.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, earlier.
Yeah.
But what was happening in the 80s when I came here, it was different. It was different. And I didn't. I felt that the kind of films I want to do will be few and far between, and the rest is just very regular stuff. Nothing really exciting.
Do you reckon there was more space even then for those kind of movies, that kind of cinema, the series you did with Farooq Sheikh? I mean, those are the movies that have greatly influenced the whole generations of
Yes.
filmmakers, film students.
Yes, the ones we did.
The ones you did.
Yeah.
And I reckon that there was more scope for those kind of stories to be told in
Yeah.
the way they were told as compared to today.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And so because I picked what I wanted to be part of, so वो कम बनता था. And but there was this movement, which was the parallel cinema movement, and we were all part of it. There was Nasir and Shabana, Om Puri, Smita, and then I got to be part of that movement, and I'm very blessed that I did those kind of films.
And in a way, ma'am, this is another thing that you write. You wanted to go to JJ School of Art. It wasn't possible.
Yeah.
Then you were told not to do Kathak anymore for something happened.
No, not anymore. I mean, we were encouraged to. Arts was something parents encouraged, but not in the kind of scenario which can happen in the rowdy Punjab, young.
Right.
My mother didn't think that was the way to go about it. She thought it should have been, managed better. Girls shouldn't become vulnerable. I mean, in a performance, lights go out. There's no security, nothing, and obviously my mother's going to panic. तो वो सब उनको. She said no.
Now
not this
I'm
way,
reminded about, because the rural, rough and ready Punjab setting. There's one instance you write, it's really funny, about you're walking in some bazaar and there's this Greek-like Jat man that you're admiring.
Yeah, that's.
So
I think it was a Baisakhi da Mela or something like that. Yeah, I'm admiring this Jat walking. I can see him, the hall gate, framed by that, and then in his perfect white starched pagdi and kurta and dhoti and then he spits and there's spittle all over my face and my whole kurta and my kameez and I'm saying, oh,
Yeah.
bloody child.
Yeah. And that, your voice is so honest throughout the book. Like, you're using terms that you used before. You have not tried to change them to make them sort of more suitable to today's context, whether it is the Republic of, Mochistan or and I found that very endearing.
I wanted to keep it like that because my whole purpose of writing this book is really to take you back there and make you sort of live what I have lived, so that you can, it's very visual. The book is visual. That's the way I write actually.
And and you've written before. I mean,
Yes.
people may not know it, but you've written before. You've written short stories. You've written poetry.
Even the short stories are very visual. Yeah. I think I'm basically a cinematic soul.
Now that one can see. And
Yeah.
in the last section, you end with the light of Punjab, and it's so beautifully described. I mean, whoever's been to Punjab, even in one season,
Yes.
and witnessed some of
It's
that.
the winterish landscape.
So, are you like now connected with Punjab in any strong sense?
Yes, I would. I hope Punjab will own me more after this book is out. Yes, I would like to be more connected now, because one has been doing other things, and I used to go there because the house was there, but there came a time where my father had to sell the house. I so regret that, and I just feel, oh, all right, maybe the house is not there, but I'm going to start going there much more, and I was just busy putting everything down, and I would love to spend more time there. Yeah.
One question, and these are maybe you can quick fire ones, but I want to learn from your wisdom. Why do you think patriotic songs are played in our barats?
In our
Barat processions, the Mere Desh Ki Dharti Sona Holi. And
In
because
our
you write
Barat?
Barat when the wedding happens and the procession goes, why?
नहीं वो not patriotic there. They will play Begani Shadi mein Abdullah Diwana. They will play patriotic songs were played during the war time. The war, I mean, we heard them all the time. Pak war.
Right, and this is not in the book. This is my
Achha,
curiosity.
This is your observation.
Yes, that why are we dancing to patriotic songs in Shadi? Is it a war effect?
Getting people ready for
Battle. And another curiosity was, what is this good man the Laltain? I mean,
Yes,
where does it come from?
Good man the Laltain was a term that Piti would use all the time. Whenever he would say, oh,
father.
good man the Laltain. And that time, of course, we never questioned it. What is that? It's just an expression of exuberance, of, being tickled about something, being happy about something. But till I was in Bombay, we just took it for granted that Piti, when he gets happy and he's, he's excited, he just says that. I'm going through Chor Bazaar and I come across, and I'm looking at ship lamps, okay, and I pick up something and it's a lantern, okay, and नीचे उसके emboss किया हुआ है good man. So good man, it's a company called Goodman or Goodman or what? It's a British company called Goodman or Goodman. So I'm saying, and it's a lantern. So and I'm saying, oh, really? It's this lantern by Goodman, which is called Goodman the Laltain. Laltain हो गया उसको lantern को. I was quite amused and I was very tickled. I just thought, wow, I mean, I've discovered the origin of that phrase we heard all our life, and so many other people also, not just my father, but many other people also. काफी मतलब
Exactly,
बोलते-
it was common
it
for a
was-
certain
Yeah,
generation.
it was a common
Yeah.
expression. Yeah.
My some friend's father, grandfather used that apparently a lot.
Yes.
Whenever he was happy, just like your father.
Yes,
And
yes.
so I wanted to ask you, what is the origin
This
story
it
of
becomes
this
such a cultural
yeah,
thing, na?
meaning making
Yeah.
from a lalten?
हाँ, लालटेन.
The other thing that has come up multiple times in the book is how you observed, uh, people who are on fringes of your setting, and also specifically, people who got some kind of mental issues or who kind of relegated because of their mental disease or whatever. So there are 3-4 characters.
Yeah.
Of course, notably one of your classmates, one of your good friends.
One of the
Yeah.
girls in
And
my
do you see that
Close friend.
that has changed in general?
Oh, yes.
In India,
Oh,
how we look at
absolutely.
such.
Yeah, we are able to. Yeah, so much has changed. उस वक्त तो एक टैबू था ना. It was a stigma. There was stigma to it. You didn't want anyone to know that anybody in your family is going through has a mental disorder, because it would reflect in socially. Nobody felt comfortable talking about it, because फिर ऐसा कुछ था कि who's going to marry into that family if the family genetically there is a mental history of. So there was this huge stigma. Today it is treated more like a situation and a condition which needs care and attention and be discussed and talked about. I did a lot of, it stems from there. My close and knowing this friend of ours, Nita.
And you choose that major.
Because we knew Neetu at close quarters, so that my interest in this whole aspect of mental disorder had already kind of set in my head, and I chose to study that when I went to New York, and I studied abnormal psychology and psychology. And also then when I came back, the first script that I wrote was an actress playing the role of a mentally disturbed girl, and how she gets impacted by playing that role and by observing women inside the mental ward. So that, there is a connect that goes on and on in my work also, in my poetry also. During childhood, there was, the first instance was before that, when we, when people, when the kids in the neighborhood say, pagal hai, shudai, we don't really look at that as a mental illness. It doesn't register. It's just some buffoon, in the neighborhood. मोहल्ले में कोई एक पागल सा है. Never really looked at it as a mental disorder. At that time, we take it too lightly. We are either scared or नहीं वो खींचे पैर, कोई पकड़ लेगा, डराएगा, डर तक था. Only being scared that this character called Pa, he's going to pop up from somewhere and he's going to scare us. So वो डर and but not really thinking of it as a condition, as a disorder. So all that happened later.
People just
Later
grow up
in
with
life.
those biases and prejudices and are not able to change them. So in your case, obviously, it's a completely
But for me, it opened it opened many areas of concern or interest.
Why did you call that lady who you used to run out after your school tanga,
My
whatever you called her? And what does it mean? And that just say how cruel children can be.
Yeah, how cruel, yes. I think we all had that element of cruelty. We called her my code killi. Code killi is a lizard. I don't know. I didn't coin that term. I can promise you that. The kids called her. So we all got to
Yeah, you say that you were never the instigator, but you never let your friends down either.
Yeah. We called her my code Kirli, and of course this Pa, this other character who lived under the thada, everybody called him Pa, but Pa is actually brother.
Yes.
Prava or Pa,
Paji.
Paji. Huh. So, but that's what his name was, only Pa. Nobody knew his other name, and whether he had another his name.
Vivid memories, and after like a long life, and one still retains it. How long did it take to recollect all this and interviews? What was the process like?
I've been making notes forever. When I entered my late 30s, I knew that I'm going to write an autobiography, but not my whole life, not like I did this and then this happened and then that happened. I found that a little, why is it so important? Okay, there are so many interviews we've been giving over a period of time. There's so much known about us as actors, as cinema celebrities, तो उसमें क्या बताने वाला है? But I thought that the unknown part is the childhood that I spent in Amritsar. That nobody will know, and that is something from my eyes. If I write, I will write about my childhood. That's what I thought from the very beginning, and I would make notes. I would jot things down. I have jottings, so many. It's unnerving to then have to skim through all that material and then pull out what is going to become a chapter, what is going to be used in which section. All that was very tedious work. But I've been doing this work forever. 20 years ago, I think I wrote the first 4 chapters of my book. And then
of this book?
This book, the first 4. I will let you take a guess which may have been written earlier, but I won't tell you right away. And then there was so much work to be done. I kept on making notes, I kept on speaking to people, I kept making contact with family members and saying, listen, did you hear about this? How did actually, do you know anybody who might be able to give me more details? This went on. And of course, work in cinema, other things also happened. Personal life, distracted you, took you, off the track. You couldn't continue working on the book. But last 5 years, I think as I got in touch with, I'm the one who got in touch with David because I knew him for a very long time, much earlier, when I thought my poetry should be published. So I must. David was with Penguin at that time, so I'd spoken to him. Then nothing happened, no book, nothing. Then I got busy with my life and my work, and then I sent him these first 4 chapters. So when he came on the scene, that's when I knew that okay, now this book is going to be published, so I have to write it. So then the intense work really has taken up the last 5 years of my life. I've said no to everything else and pushed aside everything and just been doing this work. I think 5.5 to 6 years.
Certainly, spending all this time revisiting one's childhood and the various influences, the characters, it must have been some kind of learning, for lack of a better word, for anybody who does that. For you, I'm sure.
Yeah, also very cathartic.
Very cathartic, yeah. I wonder if everybody should do this, like look back at your childhood, look at what happened and see why you're like this today or why you react to things like this today.
Why you are who you are.
Yeah.
But childhood is actually, they say everything is rooted in childhood, but in between so much life happens that you don't even recognize yourself, what you have become. till you start connecting back with the childhood part of you, and then you recall, but I was that, I was, what have I become? I was that child, you know, and then you want to connect back to yourself the way you were when you were a child. That purity, you crave for that purity and that,
Intensity.
you know,
of the-
yes, that you can say naive तो बहुत often used term है, but that purity, you know, of reacting to situations in a very unprepared way. That's what childhood is like, that's what it is. And then you want to be like that again. As you grow older, you want to really say, वो वैसे थे, कितना अच्छा था.
You're multi-talented. And how does, I mean, everything is, I mean, it's not compartmentalized, but how does your acting, I mean, painting, writing, photography, being with yourself, how does that influence your acting? How has that inputted into your acting? Let's say.
I think for me it's sort of all connected. I like to think of it like that. May not be. It may be compartmentalized also. I don't know. But I like to think that it's all interconnected. Because my observations, you know, of life that come from my nature. I am, maybe as a child also, I was observant. I was probably much more of a keen observer than the others around me, and that's why we have these 400 pages of just childhood. Lekin that observation helps me even as an actor, because all actors do, they observe people more keenly than maybe others, because they know that somewhere something gets, you register something and you know that it's going to come, use in your work. Sometimes a role can lead you to write something, and sometimes it's the other way around, you know. Definitely I'm not able to make that distinction so much. I look at it as one process. Sometimes I get I get to express myself through one medium or through another. For me, it's interlinked.
Yeah. Ma'am, finally, how do you look back at the mahal of the state that you were born in, Punjab, of Amritsar, as you call it?
Amritsar.
Amritsar.
Our Amritsar or Amritsar used to convert to Amritsar when any of the nuns would be passing by.
So last 3-4 decades, ma'am, given the mahal and all, how, any thoughts on that? Any reflections on the mahal of Punjab itself?
Yeah, a lot has changed. Amritsar has changed a lot.
Is the masjid must be still there?
Masjid is there. It's more beautiful now because it's nicely painted. When I lived there was no green petals on the dome, but now those petals are bottle green and it's sparkling now. You know, it was a bit of a neglected place earlier. Yeah, so there's a beautification to hua hai. I mean, this is the physical part of
I mean more like the mahal wise.
Yeah, mahal. I don't know. I when I spend more time there, I would, I guess, understand. But I did notice that as you drive through the fields and as you're driving through the landscape of Punjab, you don't see anymore that Kali or Durga or any goddess ka even some semblance of a, you don't see, nothing. Those motifs are all gone.
Well,
So I was wondering, I said, why are they all gone? But that's all. That's my only observation, I can tell you.
No, that's a very poignant observation, and I
Yeah.
think there's more to read between those lines,
Yes,
certainly.
yes.
But it was such a pleasure talking to you, ma'am.
Thank
My
you
pleasure.
so much.
Thank you for this
Lovely
interview.
talking to you. Thanks.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.